Our business manager, Eric Saltzwedel, posed a number of questions, so I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. Um, the first one was, how did I choose piano? Actually, my grandmother was my first piano teacher. She started me at the age of 7. She was a piano teacher for decades in Minnesota, but she would never start anyone before the age of 8. She absolutely refused to start people before 8. But I was 7 and she was visiting, and so apparently I wore her down. So anyway, she started me at the age of 7, which was really wonderful because at the age of 9 I became the Sunday school pianist in the congregation where my father was serving. It was a small congregation in California, Covina, which is no longer in existence, but very small, and they had no one to play piano for Sunday school. So that person became me, again at the age of 9. And I don't remember too much about it, but I do remember that I insisted my father give me the hymns by Tuesday. And he did. He did. I still like to have hymns by Tuesday, although I don't always get them in time, but that's fine. So, um, and the second question was, how and when did the organ come into the picture? Actually, I started playing the organ pretty late. I didn't start organ until I was a junior in high school, which is late in the scheme of things. My first teacher, my first organ teacher, was Frances Schrempel, who is a Moravian music legend in her own right, that's for sure. Um, and I don't really know why. I don't remember why or how I got involved in organ playing, but I think I just thought it would be fun, and I was interested, and it is fun. I mean, to me, it's a whole lot more fun than playing the piano. Sorry, pianist, but there are more buttons to play with, and it can get much louder than a piano can, and so it's just yeah, it's a power thing. It's a power thing. Um, the next question Eric had was about influential teachers, and certainly there were many. Probably the most influence, or the people who would have the most influence on me, I would say would be the Shantzes, Dick and Monica Shantz, who were the dynamic duo of Moravian College Music Department for decades. Dick was one of my conducting teachers. Don Spieth, who is still there, was also one of my conducting teachers. Another conducting teacher who was influential with me was, of course, Joe Flummerfeld at Westminster Choir College. Just loved that man. I mean, he was a bear of a man, but an exceptional musician. And I would always say that he had more musicianship in this part of his little finger than like 300,000 other musicians I knew. He was just an incredible person, and I'm so glad I got to learn under him. When I was thinking back, another early piano teacher I had, and I can't even remember her name, isn't that awful? But when I was in California, my last piano teacher in California actually got me started in music theory. And I hadn't really been exposed to that before, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had games and different ways to look at music and figure out what key we were in, et cetera, intervals, and I really got into that. And then we moved away 6 months later. So there you go. That's the life of a PK. But I think that probably was ingrained in me and made a difference along the way. Other influences, though, not necessarily teachers, but yeah, certainly tutorial. I think probably the most outstanding influence in my life has been growing up in and with Central's music program. So we moved back to Bethlehem when I was a sophomore in high school, and at that point, I joined the handbell choir, which was directed by Marilyn Coleman. I joined the youth choir. I started singing in Central's choir, both with Dick and Monica Shantz. And the Central's choir led and continues to lead the congregations to new heights of worship every Sunday morning. It's just, the music program there is just absolutely incredible. And so having that type of worship every Sunday, along with Passion Week and the emotion from high to low to high again that all that brings, and the just the oral and the visual grandeur of Christmas Eve services at Central, which if you've never been there, you need to come. That absolutely, you need to have experience Easter in Winston-Salem and Christmas in Central, and that's just all there is to it. Um, it's just wonderful, and I will tell you that the best view of Christmas Eve is from the balcony. Let me just say that. So, um, just and we had, not only did we lead worship every Sunday morning, but we had and they do still continue to have concert series, and so we weren't only exposed to anthems, we were exposed to major works, and it was just an incredible learning experience and an incredible experience to be able to participate and to sing wonderful music that I will probably never be able to sing again, but it was truly wonderful, and I think certainly helped shape me and helped shape many others. Um, so the next question Eric had was about the different positions I've had as a church musician, and some of the instruments I've played. And in terms of instruments, they've been many. So you don't want to hear about all of those. But the the positions I've held, as I say, I started organ when I was a junior in high school, and then we were living in Bethlehem at that time, and then I went on to Moravian College, and was a music major there, actually a music ed major, but organ was my major instrument. And Monica and Dick Shantz were in charge of the music department at that point. And Monica was very good about placing the organ students in different positions in the Bethlehem area. And so I think I was a junior in college. I don't think I was a sophomore, but I think I was a junior when I took the job at Edgeboro Moravian Church as organist. And I was there for 3.5 years, I guess. So so the first year I was organist and had the children's choir. The second year I was organist, and we added the adult choir to that. And there was another person, Bill Burkhart, who led the youth choir. And my last year there, I think I led the youth choir as well. And that was a wonderful experience for me. Maybe not always for them, but it was wonderful for me. And that was, in terms of instruments, that was an Allen old tube organ, if you remember those old tube organs. It has since been replaced with a pipe organ. Anyway, so I was at Edgeboro when I finished college, and then also stayed there when I was in graduate school in Princeton, New Jersey. I just did the commute. And then after I finished grad school, I actually had the wonderful opportunity to move to Germany, to one of our Moravian congregations there, Neuwied am Rhein. And that was a life-changing experience for me. I still have very close friends in Neuwied, and it's one of my homes. Neuwied is home to me. Bethlehem is home to me, and I'll tell you a little bit later about another home. But yeah, that's where I feel at home. And I still think probably the only reason I got that job actually is that my great-great-grandfather had been organist and taught in the school there. And so I think, I don't know, the Michael name was still hanging around or something. But anyway, it was just truly a wonderful experience. I was there for 2 years. It was a 1 to 3 year appointment, and I stayed for two, and then came back to the States. And when I got back to the States, I was organist choir director at the Emmaus Moravian Church for about 6 years. And there I was organist. I had the children's choir, the adult choir. I was accompanist for the Single Sisters choir. And I also had the brass choir, which was just fun. It was just fun. And that was, we had probably 12 to 15 brass players, all guys, except for one, Mary Ellen Coleman, who joined our choir when she was a freshman at Moravian College. But other than that, they were all guys. Ranged in age from 8 to 80. And I never had as much fun with anybody else as I did with them. They were just fabulous group of people, and the brass choir is still going, and they are still fabulous. And I think some of them who were there when I was there are still there. They're probably 180 by now, but that's okay. Still playing. And I left there and went to Nazareth and was in Nazareth Moravian Church for 2.5 years. There I was organist as well. Did the adult choir, did the children's choir, did the handbell choir. Someone else, Linda Wickman, actually, began a beginner's bell choir, a youth bell choir while I was there. So that was fun. And then all of a sudden in January of 1987, I know it's a long time ago. A lot of you weren't born then. I was given the opportunity to take a publishing job in Florida. So I left Moravian roots and I moved down to Florida. And while I was in Florida, when I had the chance, I worshiped at and played for the Moravian Church, the Prince of Peace Moravian congregation in Miami as often as I could. Unfortunately, I did a lot of traveling with my regular work, so I couldn't be there every Sunday. I couldn't have a regular church job. But when I wasn't Moravian, I served a number of different denominations as a substitute organist, choir director. And that was actually very good for me because until I moved away, I had always served as a Moravian church organist. And I always said that if you can be a Moravian organist, you can play anywhere. That's still true. That is absolutely still true. I believe it to this day. If you can play a Moravian communion service and a Moravian love feast, you can play almost any service that I know of, at least. But it was good for me to be exposed to other denominations, to learn different hymns, to learn different methods of worship. For example, I didn't know until I was Episcopalian that you could actually have a hymn after the benediction. I mean, who knew? We don't generally do that in the Moravian Church, but it can be done. So it was a good experience for me to be there. So I was in Florida for about 30 years. No, 20 years. Sorry. So don't make me any older than I am. And in 2007, I returned to Bethlehem to take the job as assistant director of the Moravian Music Foundation. And at that point became director of music also for College Hill Moravian Church, which is right across the parking lot from my office. And I'm still at College Hill, which is a wonderful place to be. So Eric also asked about maybe the better route to go here is, why did I move to Miami in the first place? That was for a music publishing job. And so I started out in music publishing at Shawnee Press in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania in 1978, something like that. And people often ask, how do you get a job in music publishing? The answer is, I have no idea. You just have to be in the right place at the right time. And because it's not really something you learn in school. Now, they do have different programs for music publishing, but probably more copyright-oriented programs and more legalistic approach. But in terms of the day-to-day nitty-gritty editing, proofreading, yeah, I don't know that you go to school for that. It's like almost everything else. You just learn it on the job. And I'm not really sure why it appealed to me, but I had always kind of in the back of my brain, I thought, well, that sounds like fun. And I think probably because publishing is in my blood. My father was editor of the Moravian for 20 years. And and my grandmother wrote, my great grandfather wrote. Yeah, I probably didn't have any choice in the matter. But as I say, it sounded like fun to me. And so when this job came up at Shawnee Press, I was actually the church music editor for Shawnee Press, so I headed the Harold Flammer division. I They offered it to me, and it turned out to actually be fun. So I was there for about 8 years, and then moved to Miami. To Columbia Pictures Publications in Miami. Columbia Pictures had recently purchased Bellman Mills. You probably know that name. H.W. Gray is part of Bellman Mills, was part of Bellman Mills. And so I was asked to move down to Miami to become their church music editor. When I went, it was Columbia Pictures Publications, and then we became something else and something else and something else, and wound up as Warner Brothers Publications, and where I was sacred choral editor. Um, that's not an easy thing to be. So it's kind of tough to be a sacred anything in a pop music publishing house, but we were definitely a stepchild. But despite that, it was a ministry to me, and publishing always has been a ministry to me. So it's hard to sell in the corporate world, but I tried. So, and and then and then Warner Brothers was actually sold to another publishing firm in 2005. And I was with them for a while and then left. And in 2007, I moved back to Bethlehem to serve as assistant director here at the Music Foundation. So finally, my job and my philosophy gelled. This was a wonderful thing. so, so as I say, church music has been my ministry, and it's nice to be able to actually live it on both ends of the spectrum for a change. Eric also asked about my philosophy of and approach to service playing. I think I just have two things to say there. So, first of all, in my mind, the organ leads the congregation, both in tempo and in setting the tone of the hymn. And the second thing is play the text. You also respond to the room, but obviously, as an organist, you always do that, but play the text. And yeah, there you go. I have a funny story about the organist leading the congregation. Eric may or may not leave this one in. As I say, when I was in Florida, I was a substitute organist quite often. And on one Easter Sunday morning, I was asked to play at a big Baptist church in close by. And this was one of those mega churches, seats 3,000 people. And I had been to this congregation before for concerts, but I had never been there to worship. And their organist actually passed away on Good Friday, so they desperately needed somebody to play. So I went to play Easter. And first of all, when I went to practice on Saturday, I spent 45 minutes looking for a bulletin, which didn't exist. So Sunday morning, I got there, and there were we had an orchestral rehearsal at whatever time of the morning that was, way before I would normally wake up. And then there was an 8 o'clock service, and I believe like a 10:30 service or so. But during the during the 8 o'clock service, there was a full orchestra, and there was a director of music who was new to that church, and a choir of, I think, 200. Um, and of course, the opening hymn was "Jesus Christ is Risen Today," and it was this marvelous organ, at least four manuals, and with 200 rank trumpet. I don't know how many trumpets were around. And so Jesus Christ is risen today. So I started by soloing out, ba, da, 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 and as an introduction to the hymn. And the director of music had a microphone, and he starts talking. And I didn't know what was going on. So I finished the first phrase. I mean, I kept going. I finished the first phrase, and I launch into the second, and he's still talking. And so, I mean, I thought, well, okay, I don't know. And I got to the third phrase, which, of course, is the line that's different. And he started singing the beginning of the hymn. And the poor orchestra didn't know what to do. So, I mean, basically we crashed and burned, and then stopped, and then started again. And so we got it worked out between services. And then after the last service, I apologized to him again for having stepped on his toes, and he's, and as I say, he was new to the congregation, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm just not used to this type of worship. And he said, well, what type of worship are you used to? And I said, well, I come from a more liturgical tradition. And he said, well, how is that different? And I said, well, for one thing, the organist is in charge of the hymns. So they did ask me back numerous times. So that was fine. But anyway, so that, yeah, there we go. I try not to step on too many toes since then. One of Eric's last questions was, what different music groups have probably been the most impactful with me, or been the most fun to deal with. I already talked about Emmaus's brass choir, which was just total delight. And at the risk of offending any other ensembles with whom I've interacted over the years, I will say certainly the Unitas Chorale. I've been conducting that, and for about 10 years now. And just, it is such a wonderful, soul-enriching group to direct and to help lead these people on in their discovery of Moravian music, new and old. And it's truly the commitment that these folks have to rehearsals every other week in the middle of a very snowy winter and spring is just truly amazing. And it's difficult to think that because people come from so many different areas, and we're not only Moravian, we come from other denominations as well, that that they can gel. There's a cohesiveness, but there is, and it's certainly a musical cohesiveness, but it's also a family, and that's wonderful. And the other thing, probably, and I'll probably cry here, is my Sunday morning choir, which right now is College Hill. And this group, it's such an amazing, talented group of musicians. We have incredible musicians at my congregation. But more than that, I mean, really incredible. More than that, they're family. And in this pandemic, I miss them. So, and I'll ask Eric to take the tears out. I think I don't really know what else to say. I think just the only the way I'd like to end, I guess, is that in my brain at least, I'm a church musician at heart. And I'm a Moravian at heart. There's no question about that. And I talked about having different hometowns. Um, Bethlehem, certainly, where I live now, and Navit. There's a third one. There's a third place that is home to me, and that's Bluefields, Nicaragua, which is where my father was born. His parents were missionaries down there, and sorry, and when I walk down the streets of any of these cities, it's I'm home. I mean, there's no question about that. But as a Moravian, we're at home in any Moravian community. I mean, I'm equally at home in Cape Town, South Africa, and or Tabora, Tanzania, or Bethel, Alaska, or Kathmandu. And I think anywhere you are with other Moravians, they are your brothers and sisters, and you are at home with them. So, and Moravian music is what binds us together. Thank you.